And here we are again. Good to go. I've kicked everyone out of the house. It's all nice and quiet, just you, me, a PC and an Xbox gamepad. Oh, the fun we could have. And the fun we shall have. It's Rob Miles, welcoming you back again. This is Chapter 2. I'm not telling you how many chapters there are, just in case you burst into tears and leave really quickly. But there's more than 2 and less than 147. Okay, so that's a little clue. But thanks for coming back. And I'm hoping you're finding it worth your while, worth your weight in gold. Today we're going to do something, and at the end of it, we'll actually have a thing which you could play as a game. So for the first time, we're actually making something which is a sort of game. In fact, there are games based on this idea which you can actually buy. There are 1 or 2 out there, and so with that exciting prospect in prospect, really, let's move on. We're looking at taking control. We're looking at getting user input from a gamepad. You want the user to do something. You want your game to display different things and change what it does depending on what the user or player, I guess you should call that person, is doing. So we're looking at taking control here. How do we get input into our game? Now we actually know quite a bit. We know that there's 2 methods in our XNA game class. One's called draw and one's called update. Update does the game engine updating. It makes the game change state as time goes by, and draw does the drawing. So as far as we're concerned, for the purposes of this little bit, we're going to put all the action into the update method, because that's the bit that looks at the gamepad and decides what to do. So update is where it's at for this session, and so we're leaving draw kind of to look after itself and thinking about how we can update our game in response to what the player actually does. Okay, so that's what we're doing. The story so far is that we're in this position now where we know how to draw things, and we know that there's this update behavior, which up until now has just made colors brighter. Now we're going to change that and make the color brightness mechanism something the user can control, something the player can actually work with. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to use player input to make a silly game and then have fun playing with it. I'm going to start by reading buttons from a controller. We'll get more advanced as time goes by. We'll read other things as well, but to start with, I want to use just the buttons. Okay, so to do this, you're going to have a Windows PC, which is fine and dandy, the XNA framework, which you can download for free, Visual Studio, that's for free as well, and this is a bit where you might have to spend some money or twiddle a bit, an Xbox 360 controller. Now you can plug these in to your PC. If you have the USB version, it plugs straight into your Windows PC. The Windows PC goes, aha, an Xbox controller, and pulls the drivers down and does stuff and basically works. If you've only got wireless ones, then all is not lost. If you get a little adapter for about £15 or so, you can plug that in your PC, and your PC can then talk to wireless game controllers as well. There's some links at the end which I'll tell you about, and you can follow those to find out more about how you can get the hardware on your PC to make it do stuff. But for now, I'm thinking from a programming point of view, how do I get to read buttons from a controller, from an Xbox gamepad? Okay. That's the gamepad. It's the familiar white thing. I reckon it's one of the best gamepads out there. I think it runs the PlayStation 3 one. I think that comes second. The Xbox, to me, it's got the weight, it's got the heft, it's nicely made, the buttons fall where you want them to, and it's a wonderful device. It's actually very complicated. Inside there's a computer whose job it is to make the gamepad work, has a headphone amplifier, a microphone amplifier, 2 motors to provide the rumble, a whole bunch of buttons and knobs, and it's a 2-way radio as well. The wireless one has a 2-way transmit and receive job that can talk to your PC, send audio backwards and forwards, and do all kinds of stuff. Very powerful device, probably more powerful than most of the first game consoles actually. So you've now got more power in your gamepad than we had in our first game console, which is a kind of scary thought, but it's the way things are going, so don't worry you too much. Okay, so that's the gamepad. I don't really know how it works. For all I know, it could use magic pixies. You might press the button and the pixie goes, "Aha! Master has pressed the blue button," and he runs down the wire or through the ether and tells the computer in the Xbox 360 what's happened. I don't know how it works. It's very clever. You can take the back off. Please. Might not end happily, but you can do this. Take a look inside and go, "Ooh." Or go online and take a look, see if someone else has done that, and have a look at what they've done to find out what's inside there. Very clever. The wonderful thing from a software point of view is that we don't have to know or care how it works. The people that made XNA have done a wonderful job of hiding all that complexity from us. So as far as we're concerned, it's just a box that we can get information from, and we treat it as a black box that just does a job, and we don't know or care how it works. I'm fairly sure it isn't Pixies, okay? But it just works. Don't worry about it. Just keep moving forwards, okay? As far as our program's concerned, we're kind of familiar with this idea of things inside the program that we talk about and talk to. We know there's different types of object. One object holds color information, one object holds integers, there's all kinds of different objects that hold things, and the designers of XNA have invented a special kind of object called GamepadState that tells me everything about a gamepad that I might wish to know. Okay, colors hold colors, red, green, blue, and that transparency thing we talked about. The state of a gamepad lives in this gamepad state thing. So as far as we're concerned, the gamepad starts and ends with this object that represents it. Okay, and this thing sits in the program, and we ask it questions and it tells us things. It really is as simple as that. The gamepad type just sits between your program and the gamepads that you're presently connected to. We just use this gamepad to give us the gamepad state information, and then off we jolly go. If this sounds complicated and scary, then please don't worry. It's actually dead simple. It actually just works. We say to the gamepad type, "Can you give me some gamepad state please?" And it goes, "Okie dokie, here's a lump of data that tells you all about the gamepad as it is at the moment." Okay, so we know that update gets called 60 times a second. That means every time update gets called, we have a look at the gamepad, take a look at what buttons are pressed, and do something depending on which buttons are presently being held down. That's how it works. If it sounds a bit complicated, don't worry. We're going through the code in a minute or two, and that's the point at which it suddenly gets an awful lot easier to understand. But the fundamental thing is that I have a object in the memory of the game which represents the state of my gamepad at the instant that I looked, and the gamepad type is the producer of these objects. It will go off and get one for me. It provides a method to actually get me the state of a gamepad. So without further ado, we just ask the gamepad, give us this object, and it will say, fair enough, here's what it looks like, and then away we go. And I really want to see some code, so here you go. This is the box which I'm making. It's called Gamepad 1, and it will, oops, that's back. This computer's getting too excited. The box is called Gamepad 1. It's of type GamepadState. We've done things to make variables of type byte and type color. I'm making a variable here called Gamepad 1, which is of type GamepadState. So this is the box which will hold the information about my gamepad. Right, and everything's in there, buttons, thumbsticks, all the stuff you want to know. So we've got this little box that can hold information about what our gamepad's doing at the moment, and if I want to, I can call a method called GetState, which lives on the gamepad, which is kind of like the link between my program and the physical device itself, and I say, okay Mr. Gamepad, give me the state of the gamepad for player 1. So we tell GetState, I want to look at Gamepad 1. Right? That's fine. The Xbox 360 can handle up to 4 gamepads, so you can really easily write multiplayer games. Just change that to a 2, 3 or 4 and you'll get the matching gamepad. So this basically says, Mr. Gamepad, okay, you're in charge of gamepads, get me the state of the gamepad with player index 1. Okay, the first gamepad, the one with the quadrant in the top left hand corner if you like, and shove that information into this variable I've made called Gamepad1. So at this point in the program, I've actually got the information. I've taken a snapshot of what the gamepad's presently doing, and it's sitting in this variable. Okay, so the green thing, remember, that's just a comment. That's just there so that I can tell myself why I wrote that particular piece of code. So the comment goes before it, says I'm getting the state of Gamepad1, fine and dandy, and call the method GetState, which lives on the gamepad object, tell it which thing I want, in this case Gamepad1, and shove it in this particular box. So away we go. Gamepad1 is now the thing that will tell us which buttons are pressed. Okay, it really is as simple as that. If you want to break it down, then here we go. The gamepad is the thing that can hold the state. The gamepad is the kind of the gatekeeper. It's the pixie, if you like, in charge of getting information from gamepads. The GetState method is the thing we're asking Gamepad to do for us, and we tell it which particular gamepad we want to read, in this case the one for player 1. Okay, that's how it all fits together. We've done this kind of thing before. We've called methods to make things happen. This is just another method doing another job and producing a particular result which our program wants to use. Okay, so nothing particularly scary here. We're just going off and getting something, and then on we go. This thing is a little box, if you like, and there's stuff in there. Stuff about the red button, the green button, the yellow button and the blue button. That's all fine and dandy. Again, I don't really care how it fits together or what it does or how it works. I'm just going to take a look at the things that that object exposes to tell me what the gamepad is presently doing. Okay, so it just gives you information about what's happening on that gamepad, and we can then use that in our program to do whatever we like. So that there you go. It is, again, I keep saying it's simple. I've been doing this for years. It's simple for me. If you're having bother with this, go back and run through and replay and keep on listening until it makes sense. But effectively, if I want to know what the weather's like in Tulsa, I'll ring someone up in Tulsa and say, "Hey Fred, what's the weather like?" And he'll send me a packet of information. It's raining a bit with some big grey clouds. Okay, so same kind of thing here. If I want to find out what the gamepad's got on it, I'll ring up the GamepadState thing and say, "Hey, what's the gamepad state like?" And it'll come back and say, "Ah, here's a lump of data that says the green button's down but the blue button isn't, and he's twiddled the thumbstick up a bit and to the left." Okay, so it's just you ask someone to tell you something, and that's how this works as well. And the something you get told is this lump of data, which is a value of type GamepadState. And I can ask this thing all kinds of questions and look at what things it exposes for me to make use of to find out what the program's doing. Okay, now in programming terms, we know we ask questions, we know we make decisions by using this thing called an if. If is followed by something which is true or false, and then you have a block of code after that which is obeyed if the condition is true. We've done this, we did it to make our lights flash correctly in earlier sessions, and so this should not be a surprise to you. The gamepad provides a property called isConnected, and the name is very good clue here. If this property is true, it means, hey, we have a gamepad plugged in on Gamepad1. Okay, so the idea here is that we say to the gamepad, "Hey Mr. Gamepad, are you connected?" And if it is, this comes back true. Now this is neat. This is very neat. Some games are really easy to do in multiplayer. Some games you actually just plug the controller in and the game goes, "Hey, welcome player 2, you want to play the game as well?" And then off you go. It's just as simple as that. There's nothing to worry about. There's no program crashing because it can't find a gamepad. XNA makes it really easy for you to write multiplayer games where the user just plugs in a gamepad and joins the gameplay, because the program can tell if the gamepad is plugged in or not. Okay, and this is how it does it. Ask the gamepad, "Are you connected?" If the answer to that comes back false, then there's no gamepad here, he's not plugged in, it's not turned on, so there's no point in looking. So the first thing my program will do is say, "Do we have a gamepad here?" And if the answer is true, then this lump of code, just at the moment a single comment, actually gets obeyed, and at that point we actually we know we have a player 1, and away we go. So first thing we have to do is say, do we have a gamepad? If we do, stuff in here can start thinking about using that gamepad to change what the game's doing. Okay, If we have a gamepad, it will have buttons, okay? And the buttons, there's 4 of them: A, B, X and Y. A is green, B is red, X is blue and Y is yellow. Okay, this is the convention for the XNA gamepad, and so we can say if the gamepad buttons collection button A has the state pressed, then make green get brighter. You might remember this from earlier, in that what we have here is the variable that holds the intensity of our green display, and we're making it 1 bigger because that's what plus plus does. So if you want to nail down what this program actually does, it reads the A button, and if it's pressed, it makes the screen get more green, to coin a phrase. Now that's quite nice because the button on the gamepad, which is A, is actually the green button. So the upshot of this little piece of code is that when they press the green button, the screen gets more green, to coin a phrase. Okay, and so we've got our gamepad, we get information from it, and it's telling us, yeah, that's pressed, let's make it greener. Okay, so the user can now control how much green there is on the screen by pressing the green button to make the amount of green go up. I can even show you this working. If I use the magic of badoink, 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 this is my little piece of programming. It's remarkably like the mood light program we wrote before, in that we have a background color we're clearing the screen to, and if I wander up here, we have a red intensity and the green intensity and the blue intensity, which we're using to produce that color. And as you can see here, this is like the this is the payload, this is the bit that makes our program work. I'll just give a bit more space so you can see it properly. I go off and I get my gamepad state. I then say, are you connected? And if you are, this code here gets obeyed. If we're pressing A, we get more green. If we're pressing B, we get more red. If we're pressing X, we get more blue. So pressing the blue button makes the screen go bluer, pressing the red button makes the screen go redder, and so on and so forth. Now you're going to have to trust me here, because you can't see my gamepad, but I'm holding it in my hand. There you go, you can hear it. I'm twiddling it, and that's the buttons and all that kind of stuff. Right, so that's it. So here you go, start it running, the program will run, and the screen will be black. So if you listen carefully, you'll hear me press the green key down. There it goes. And as I hold it down, the green gets brighter. If I now press the red key, we'll see what happens if you mix green and red. It goes a kind of ooh, yellow. And if I press the blue key adds a bit of blue, and we get towards white or grey. So, I don't know whether you could hear those, but effectively I can keep on pressing buttons. Now what we found when we wrote this program before is that the brightness can only get so bright. And so if I keep on, oh, did you see that? Did you see that? I pressed the green button and I held it down so long that the green intensity got too big to fit in a bite. We did this before with our mood light, and we found that the mood light goes from fully bright to dark again. Okay, now what's happened here is that the green has gone from as much green as you can have to no green at all. So at the moment we're just seeing red and blue, which makes this rather attractive purple colour. I can increase the red, and as the red gets brighter, bang, eventually the red vanishes because we've wrapped that red value round as well, and all we've got now is blue. And so I can keep on pressing the blue down, more and more blue, and suddenly the blue goes away and we go back to black. So we've got our buttons here we can use to control the colour, and I can get any one of, I can sort of pick interesting colours if I want. Wrap that round, come on, there you go, add purple, add a bit more red, so I've got a kind of red thing, add a bit more blue to that, and a bit of green, and we'll get to like a cyan. So you can play around making colours now. So we've got like a colour mixer program. We've also got the basis of a game, and we'll talk about that in a second. But what I want you to see is that the engine that makes this work, the bit that makes it go, I'll just clear that screen so you can see properly, is that if my gamepad's connected, I'm going to make green brighter if A is pressed, red brighter if B is pressed, and blue brighter if X is pressed. And it really is as simple as that. Go off and get the gamepad, see if it's connected, and then use the value it exposes to actually control the colours on our screen. It really is as simple as that. And rather nice. And that's the wrong screen, Robert. Go down with that. Okay, so that's how things work, and to get this, I held a rather attractive. I got a green color by adding a bit of green to some blue and some red, and away it went. Okay, so Color Nerve is the game I'm talking about. Now, I've seen these games before on lots of platforms. There's one where you like shake a bottle, and you pass the bottle around, and everyone has a little shake, and eventually it'll blow up in somebody's hand, and they lose a life, and you move on. In the case of Color Nerve, players take it in turns to press buttons and change the color. And if someone makes the screen flash, they're out. Okay, so the nerve thing here is that you make the thing as bright as you dare make it, and then pass the gamepad to the next person. They have to make it brighter still until at some point somebody will press the red button too long, as you can see here, and the red color goes away completely, and the screen goes green or whatever as that color wraps around and goes back to naught again. So the idea here is that we're using it as a kind of shake the bottle game, where you keep building the colours up and building the colours up, and when someone wraps one round, so you can play tactics, you can hold a button down until it's very nearly going to go, and then pass the gamepad onto somebody else like an unexploded bomb. But there's all kinds of fun you can have with this, and this is actually the basis of quite a few common games. Quite a few mini games work on this kind of technique. So there is a fully fledged game idea in here which you can work on, or you can use it as a colour mixer. I don't really mind either way. Either way works for me. So in terms of what we know, what we've learned, we know C# provides all these different types. We also now know that the gamepad state is the lump of data which tells me a snapshot of what the gamepad looks like, and if I go off and get one of these, it'll tell me what's happening on that gamepad. And we also know that we can get these things from the GetState method, which is provided by this GamepadState object. So the code tells us all that, and so we now have a way in which we can get things from the gamepad and make our program respond accordingly. And so now it's time for the time-honored true-false round. You're not going to get a prize for getting question 1 right, folks. Gamepads are actually operated by Pixies. I don't think that's true. Neither does the presentation, which is good. The gamepad object is part of XNA. That's right, it's not part of C#, it's something which the XNA writers have given us so we can find out what the gamepad looks like. So that one's going to go green. The gamepad object holds information about the state of the gamepad. Tricky question this. This is like a real humdinger. If you remember, the gamepad is the thing that goes off and gets the state. So this is the man in Tulsa you ask. It isn't the weather information, this is the person you ask. So I reckon that's going to go red, because the gamepad object is the thing that makes the state information. It's the actual link to the gamepad itself. The GamepadState object is the thing which produces the actual answer. The gamepad object lets you set the state of the gamepad buttons. You can't set the buttons. The program can't control the buttons on the gamepad. It can read them, but it can't sort of reach out and press the button, so that one's going to be false. And the bottom one in a C# property is a kind of house. No, it's something which exposes information about a particular item in your program. So I reckon that's going to be red. And it is. So there you are. We've learned a little bit about how to use gamepads to read information from the player. We've even made a very, very simple kind of game. If you want to find out the source files, more screencasts, how to get hold of one of these adapters that you can use on your PC to connect your gamepads to your PC and write your XNA programs there, then go on to www.verysillygames.com/screencasts. All the other screencasts, links to them on the magazine or wherever, are all there as well, so you can follow those and learn more. Thank you very much for paying attention, and I'm going to go and have a lie down now. Absolutely, definitely. So I'll see you next time.